Welcome into episode 180 of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm August Trometer.
A new warning about coronavirus scams, sign in with Apple signs on, and an old debate revisited. Hey, August Trometer's back. What say we do a checklist? Brought to you by Secure Mac. You have probably heard about the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES Act. Part of that includes stimulus money for lots of people across the country. According to a piece from Business Insider, millions of Americans will be getting stimulus checks from the U.S. government. The one-time direct payments will be delivered by the IRS to individual taxpayers, largely through direct deposit. That's likely an oversimplification of the process. I know there are levels to who will receive how much, if any. And if you don't have direct deposit info on file with the IRS, you will be getting a check in the mail instead. What you won't be getting is a call or an email from the IRS making sure they have the right information to get you your check.
Yeah, because that would be a scam. Business Insider says you do not have to sign up to receive a stimulus check. The process is automatic for any American who qualifies. If somebody is calling you or emailing you to confirm personal details or asking for bank information or money, it's a scam.
Okay, what if they sound official?
It's a scam.
All right, but what if it's one of those high-tech computer voices telling me that I have to call a number?
It's most certainly a scam. Turning to Business Insider again, the IRS generally gets in contact with taxpayers through snail mail, not via phone calls, text, or email, and definitely not through social media. The U.S. Treasury is also warning people about these scams, saying on its website, if you receive calls, emails, or other communications claiming to be from the Treasury Department and offering COVID-19 related grants or stimulus payments in exchange for personal financial information or an advanced fee, or charge of any kind, including purchase of gift cards, just don't respond.
Why not?
'Cause it's a scam.
Darn it. I feel like I should have known that one. Here's the thing. We know that anybody listening to this knows about scams like these. What we don't know is who you know that doesn't recognize such scams. Just a few weeks ago, actually, the cashier at the grocery store told me with no shred of embarrassment at all how somebody had called him, told him he had a virus on his computer, talked him through letting them into his computer, and then took him for a couple $100. And this dude handles money for a living, right?
Wow.
When he started the story, I assumed it was going to end with, this jerk tried to scam me. Instead, it ended with him saying, I'm out a couple $100. So that's on a normal day. And then we add in, COVID-19, all the confusion that's come out of that. There's, of course, the actual legitimate promise of money coming in. The water has basically been chummed at this point. So I guess the thing that I want to ask you, August, and that you can tell other people, what do we need to do to warn friends and family? I mean, what do we need to tell people about?
Obviously, the calls. Then a lot of the same stuff we say about emails and texts. That's not how this is going to work. Personally, I'd say delete those emails and ignore those texts. If you want to read them for a giggle, you can, but whatever you do not click any links. And finally, if you think you've been scammed, report it to authorities. You can start with your local police or read more about who to contact at the government website, usa.gov/stop-scams-frauds. And we'll post this link in our notes.
Hey, let's get off the COVID-19 thing for a while because it's so rare that you get to these days. There's more places to sign in with Apple. I don't know if people remember this or not. This was announced last year at WWDC, sort of, kind of introduced last fall. And as I say, you would be forgiven for forgetting what Sign In with Apple is. Can you remind the folks at home, August, what Sign In with Apple is?
Sure. This is a lot like login with Facebook or with Google. The only difference is that Apple isn't tracking your information. So you log in with your Apple ID and it allows people to choose what information they share, including the ability to share their email address. It's more secure, and if Apple is being honest, safer. It also allows people to use Face ID or Touch ID, which is super, super handy.
Well, unless you're using your face. It's handy if it's a touch, but it's facey if it's your face. And for God's sake, don't touch your face, except we're not doing COVID-19. Now, you may wonder why developers that are already using Facebook Login or Google Sign In would want to use Sign In with Apple. And the answer is they have to if they're using one of the other ones and if they want to stay in the App Store.
Right. When Apple introduced Sign In with Apple last year, it gave developers an ultimatum. In its developer guidelines for iOS, Apple says apps that use a third-party or social login service to set up or authenticate the user's primary account with the app must also offer Sign In with Apple as an equivalent option.
So if they had an app in the App Store that used Facebook Login and they want that app to stay in the App Store, they would have to offer Sign In with Apple as well.
Exactly. That requirement was supposed to hit late 2019. It ended up being pushed to the end of this month. And then last month, Apple pushed the date again. The deadline currently is the end of June of this year.
So why are we talking about it now, you may wonder? Because it looks like a lot of developers were already headed towards the end of April deadline. A former member over at Mac Rumors, a guy named Pedro Marquez, has compiled a list of well over 100 apps and services that have thrown the Sign On with Apple switch. August Trometer, will you please read every one of those to everybody?
No.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Instead, I'll hit a few names that you know. Airbnb, Bird, Dropbox, Etsy, Fiverr, Glassdoor, Grammarly, Grindr, Groupon, Medium, The New York Times, and the list just goes on and on. I'm curious, if somebody has been using Facebook Login or Google Sign In, let's say they were using Glassdoor or Dropbox or whatever app, and suddenly Sign In with Apple appears. It becomes an option now that people can use. Should a user switch, or is the damage done at this point?
I believe the damage is definitely done. But for the love of Pete, switch. You can limit the damage by switching now.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of an unfair question. Some damage obviously has been done. Every time that you've logged in, there is the chance, I don't want to say it's definitely happening, but there's a chance that Google has been tracking stuff or that Facebook has been tracking stuff. The thing is, you're going to log in again tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And if you suddenly have the option of using a secure door to log in instead of a less secure door, you'd take the safe route.
Bingo. I can't argue that at all. I think that's exactly the way to put it.
Revisiting the update debate. August and I'll get back in the ring in a moment. But first, a word about MacScan 3 from Secure Mac. Macs aren't what they used to be. People who years ago thought they weren't real computers or were just overpriced toys, those same people use Macs every day now, trusting them with important work and a lot of personal information. As the Mac has grown, so has its status as a target. Bad guys want to steal the info stored on them. Guard against that with MacScan 3. MacScan 3 is a great defense against malicious software attacks aimed at your Mac. It's developed by Secure Mac, trusted names in computer security and developers of exceptional security software for over 20 years. MacScan 3 detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your computer. Keep your Mac clean with MacScan 3. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today at securemac.com/MacScan. That's MacScan 3 by Secure Mac. Your 30-day free trial is waiting at securemac.com/MacScan. So you, Mr. Trometer, were not here last week. You were not here last week for me to give grief to. Last week, I went over all the updates for macOS, iOS, iPadOS, stuff for the watch, and for Apple TV, all the updates that Apple released in late March. Then when I got to the end of the show, I talked about our ongoing discussion about automatic updates. You're for them. I am where I am on them. For people who missed last week's show or who just want to hear August's words in August's words, should people have automatic updates turned on for macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and all the other stuff?
Yes, please.
Okay, why?
I will admit, not every update is a good one. There are bugs, but most of them are good updates. So for the average person, aka my mom, auto updates are the best strategy because it helps keep them up to date and in sync with all of the security updates that Apple provides.
Okay, I think that is pretty much what I said about your argument. What I said was I don't have my devices set to update automatically except for my Apple TV. Everything else I update manually, but I'm different because, my usage I think is pretty typical, but my job is to pay attention to Apple stuff, including updates and fixes. Some things do get past me. A software update does not usually get past me. And so what I said last week was if you're not spending hours every day keeping up with your Apple news or managing Apple devices, you should probably go ahead and set your devices to update automatically. I know Secure Mac says so. I know August thinks so. So probably go ahead and do that. And then I proceeded to give a reason why people didn't want to update. Now, a bunch of sites, including Cult of Mac, pointed out an issue last week. Basically, anybody running iOS 13.4 or iPadOS 13.4 couldn't FaceTime people running iOS 9.3.5 or 9.3.6 on an iPad 2, a third-generation iPad, a first-gen iPad mini, an iPhone 4S, or a fifth-generation iPod Touch. And this is not a great time for that because in this new era of social distancing, lots of people were FaceTiming with older relatives using those older machines, which were stuck on version 9.3.x, depending on what machine it was. So the reason we're bringing it up again is there's good news on that front. Apple on Tuesday released iOS and iPadOS 13.4.1. For iOS, the update addresses a bug with the Settings app where choosing Bluetooth from the Quick Action menu on the home screen would fail. For iPadOS, the update does the Bluetooth fix, as well as bringing a flashlight fix for the latest iPad Pros. And for both of them, the update fixes what was broken with FaceTime. 13.4.1 devices can once again FaceTime with 9.3.x devices, meaning either you can once again talk to your mom and dad, or you no longer have an excuse to duck FaceTime calls with mom and dad. For a couple of weeks, though, you couldn't do that. And the question I now have for you, Mr. Trometer, is does that change your stance at all on automatic updates?
Not at all. And like I said, sometimes you're going to have a bad update. In this particular case, it was a bad update. And, Apple's got a little bit of egg on its face for it. Mm-hmm. But they turned around and fixed it quite quickly.
How does this not change your mind, though? I mean, why are you still where you were?
Because for the average person, automatic updates are the best thing you can do to stay safe from security flaws, from exploits, from all of those good things that we talk about, or bad things rather.
Right. Trouble with the kernel. You won't get in trouble with the kernel by doing your automatic updates.
Right.
Or no more no more trouble than you get the idea. I'll tell you, I was talking this over with a friend who works in software development, the business side, not the coding side. But I found myself wondering a few things. I know you can't answer these questions definitively, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. The first thing I wondered was whether it was a planned obsolescence thing, whether Apple meant for the functionality to go away. My friend figures no. It was a genuine accident, possibly thanks to, people working from home and the disruption in the way we're working today. I also wondered whether, accident or not, Apple would have just left it broken if we weren't living in a COVID-19 world. And finally, I wondered whether the speed with which the issue was fixed gave us any indication as to whether this was planned or accidental. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I don't think Apple's ever been a fan of planned obsolescence. Their machines, for example, last years.
Yeah, forgive me. I may be misusing that term. I apologize. I mean, did Apple mean for this functionality to stop?
I really don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that's in their DNA.
Okay.
And as far as COVID-19, I don't really think Apple sets its upgrade schedule based on things like that. Yes, it's easy to point to that, but honestly, I think they fix bugs when bugs need fixing. And to your last question, I think they fix things when they need fixing. It's easy to ascribe motivations to a company, especially a big company like Apple, but I feel like it's unfair to judge Apple in this particular case.
Just to be clear, I wasn't saying Apple had done those things. They were things that I was wondering on my walks out by myself, because that's how we do those things these days. Hey, if you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. There you'll find notes for this show, for the last show that we did, or that, I did, whatever. Basically, all the shows that we've done and any shows coming up, all in one place, the notes are. And actually, you can listen to every show there as well. securemac.com/checklist. If you have a question you would like to ask or a topic you would like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. That address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. And we'll talk to you next week.